Welcome back, SethBling here. Today we continue my quest to create 360 custom Mario-themed magic cards. I'm designing a draft cube, and if you missed the very first video in the series, I recommend you go watch it. That explains the whole project and some of the things I'm trying to do with the set. There's a link in the video description. In the previous video, I also talked about some of the new archetypes that I'm creating for the set, allied colored pairs that do things, and it'll be something I reference in this video, so maybe go back and look at the previous video too if you missed that one. But today I'm going to start off talking about King Boo. So King Boo is not an allied color pair. He's a full-on shard boss. King Boo gets +2/+2 for each other spirit and or face-down creature you control. He's got flying. He's a big guy. He wants you to have lots of other spirits. Spirits are basically boos or face-down creatures, which are also like supposed to represent ghosts in this set. He's got Spook, which is one of the main mechanics of the set. It's the mechanic for the Ghost House Shard, and it means you can play him face down as a 2/2 for 3 mana, just like Morph. When it dies while face down, you can exile it and you can cast it for its Spook cost, which is a reduced cost. So yeah, so he fits really well into the whole Spook theme, and he's just like a big ol' flying creature. Apparently in Luigi's Mansion, I've never played Luigi's Mansion, but apparently his power is proportional to the number of nearby boos, so it makes a lot of flavor sense too. Since I have this guy as sort of like my lord for the shard, I changed Big Boo. I don't think I'm done changing it. I think this card has a few problems, but Big Boo used to get like -2/-0 for each untapped creature your opponent controls. I've changed him around, so he now matches Boo a lot better. So Boo is this 2/2 for 1 that can't attack if defending player controls an untapped creature. So it's a very good rate, 2/2 flyer for 1, but can't always attack. Big Boo can neither attack nor block if an opponent controls an untapped creature, but he's got this ability that lets you tap your opponent's creatures. So he doesn't do anything. He's just sort of an enchantment if your opponent controls any untapped creatures, but he has a way of turning himself into a creature. Flying doesn't matter on attack because your opponent won't control any untapped creatures, but he can block flyers if your opponent like taps out to attack. There's a couple things I don't like about this. He can kind of make it hard to attack, and also like which like can make games stall out, which can be pretty bad. He's also, I don't like that can't attack or block is incongruous with Boo, who only can't attack. I also don't think this ability is very flavorful for Big Boo. Anyway, I think there's a lot of problems with this card, and I want to revise it later. So expect to see this card again in another video. Boulder Geist is a card. Basically, I had this ability I wanted to print, and I thought Boulder Geist made a lot of sense. And I also didn't have a lot of mono black cards with Spook. So Boulder Geist is a boss from Mario Galaxy, but at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a non-land permanent. This is supposed to be an enabler for the black-red sacrifice theme, which works really well with cards with Spook, where you kind of want to sacrifice your 2/2 face-down creatures and get a benefit out of it. So your opponent has to sacrifice a non-land permanent first, and then it's your turn. So if this was your only card on the battlefield, your opponent would sack a non-land permanent, and then you would, and it'd be even on cards. So it's not card disadvantage, and it can be very nice if you have a lot of like 1/1 minion tokens, or you have a bunch of creatures that are face down with Spook that you actually want to sacrifice anyway to be able to cast them face up. So yeah, this is a really nice card in that strategy. It's kind of a build around card. And then here we have an anti-Spook card. So Poltergeist 3000 is Luigi's vacuum cleaner that sucks up ghosts from the Luigi's Mansion franchise. This is specifically designed to be an anti-ghost card or an anti-Spook card, but it can be used in any deck that is green-white and will probably be pretty strong. This fits really well into the green-white mid-range deck because they have pretty efficient creatures that have pretty big bodies and can make a lot of use of this. So equipped creature gets +2/+2. Whenever equipped creature attacks, up to 1 target creature blocked this turn if able. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. And it has equip 4. So it costs 6 mana to get this card, total, to get this card onto a creature. You can do it by turn 4 if you like play this on turn 2, play a 3-drop on turn 3, and then equip on turn 4. So the reason this is so good against Spook is it gives +2/+2, which means if you make a 2/2 face down creature block it, this creature is going to win in combat. And then also you'll notice that Spook is a triggered ability. It says when this creature dies while face down, exile it. So the way that works is with the creature's face down and it dies. Say you have a face down creature, it blocks the creature that Poltergeist 3000 is equipped to. It blocks the creature, dies in combat. There's a triggered ability. There would be a triggered ability that says, when it dies, you can exile it and you can cast it later. But this says if that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. So that trigger never goes on the stack. The creature just dies. The face down creature just dies. So it's a way of permanently killing the ghost rather than letting your opponent cast it with Spook. This is very good against ghosts, but it's also very good against just any creatures. On 3, maybe play a 3/3 because green white. It's not hard to get a 3/3 for 3 mana, and then on turn 4 you can be attacking with a 5/5 that makes your opponent have to block it. That can be really hard to deal with. This could be a really oppressive card, and I'm going to be watching it to see if it's too powerful. But I like the idea of the card. But there's a lot of things I could change to make it a little bit weaker, make it cost more. Maybe get rid of the +2/+2, that sort of thing. Comics Broomstick is the next card. This is a vehicle, and I think it's got some pretty good flavor. So Kamek is this Magic Koopa, and his Broomstick has flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Kamek's Broomstick becomes an artifact creature until end of turn, and it's got Crew 2. So in blue-black, I'm trying to have a lot of Crew 2 cards, because in blue-black, there's a lot of spook cards that are 2/2s when they're face down. And so it's easy to Crew 2, basically. This is a very flavorful clause here, because basically the idea is if you are casting spells, the broom can kind of act on its own and just attack on its own. But even just like crewing it for 2 mana, you have some evasive damage that you can get in. And kind of speaks for itself. I think it's got a lot of flavor. Search the Premises is a really useful card. So this is also a really simple card. It's kind of similar to Search for Azcanta from Ixalan. At the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1. That's all it says. So this is really, really, really useful in the Architect shard. Architect cares about having 4 or more card types among permanents you control. So you need like an artifact, you need an enchantment, you need a creature. In order to assemble all of that on the battlefield, it's really useful to be able to kind of filter through your cards, look at extra cards, get the cards you need, get rid of the cards you don't need. And so this does that. It's also an enchantment, which can be a hard card type to get onto the battlefield and have it stay on the battlefield. And so this is just like a very, very strong card if you're trying to build an Architect deck. And so that's the main purpose it serves, but it's also pretty good in any blue deck. Just being able to scry 1 every turn it's not too bad. Berto is kind of mostly for the red-green aggro deck, but you could use it in any red deck and it'd be good. It also has some interesting utility. So Berto is a 2/1 for 2. This is a boss, repeated boss from Mario 2. You fight him/her a few times throughout the game. And what it says is red tap, Berto deals 2 damage to target player. That player creates a treasure token. So the flavor here is that Berto shoots eggs at you. You can pick them up and kind of throw them back at her, and it will hurt her. So you can also, though, you can target yourself with this. If you're like color screwed, you need another color that you don't have access to in your lands, you can actually give yourself a treasure token by having Berto shoot you. So there's some interesting utility. It also can ramp if you have like a really expensive spell that you need to play and you're not sure that you'll have enough lands, or you want to play it earlier. You can give yourself a treasure token. So interesting card. At its face, it just looks like it deals damage to your opponent and gives them something in return for it, but it's got a little bit more utility than that. So I'm interested to see how this plays out. This is just a treasure token. Goes along with Berto, but it's a generic treasure token. I really like this art. I think it's really classy. Enough said. Firebar. This is kind of a goofy card. So Firebar, 2 in a red. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, Firebar deals 2 damage to that player. The flavor here is that you have this swinging bar that just spins around in a circle, and basically it's just whacking each player as it passes by them. It's just kind of a goofy concept. a normal firebar you could maybe dodge if you're Mario, but I thought this was funny, and it works really well. This is like known to be a very strong effect in an aggro deck, where you're sort of early game, or you're hoping to just deal a lot of damage really fast, and so taking 2 damage isn't that big of a downside because your opponent's on the defensive anyway, and they're probably not attacking you too much. This is like a card. This is similar to a card called Sulfuric Vortex, which is just known to be a very strong card in that sort of deck. So that's what it's there for. Mouser is a enemy from Mario 2. He throws bombs at you, and so I've tried to implement that in a way that's both flavorful and also very flexible and has a lot of strategic depth. So Mouser's a 1/1 for 1. You can pay 2 and tap to create a treasure token, and you can also spend 3 mana and sacrifice a permanent to have Mouser deal 2 damage to each player. So bomb blows up, deals 2 damage to each player. Sacrifice a permanent is different than just sacrificing a treasure token. So you can use this to sacrifice maybe a creature that you've stolen from your opponent, or a 1/1 spawn token that's not useful anymore. There's a lot of flexibility to this. And then creating a treasure token is also flexible. You don't have to use it to sacrifice the permanent. You can just create a treasure token. Maybe on turn 1 you play Mouser. On turn 2 you create a treasure token. On turn 3 now you have access to 4 mana. So you can play a 4-drop on turn 3, which is also pretty powerful. And it does some fixing. It's kind of similar to some things that Berto can do. But it does even better because it's a 1-drop. So got a lot of flexibility, and it's also nice in the black-red sacrifice theme. It could be used for all sorts of purposes, though. So that's Mouser. Yeah, I like this kind of card because it looks like it does one thing into it. Like a new player, they're just going to see, okay, you make tokens, then you sacrifice them, and that's what it does. But a more advanced player can start to see extra things that you can do with it and plan ahead a little bit more. And so without adding too much text to the game, this creates a ton of flexibility. And so that is a cool card. I like it. All right, now I have Item Box and Fake Item Box, and they're sort of mirrors of each other. They're very similar cards, and you'll see what I mean. So Item Box is supposed to represent a Mario Kart item box. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Pursuit, if an opponent controls more creatures than you, look at 6 cards instead of 3. So an item box gives you an item. If you're behind in the race, it gives you a better item. So that's it. That's the card. You get to look at more cards and potentially pick a better item. It doesn't always give you a better item, but you have a better shot at a better item. So it's kind of self-explanatory. Very flavorful for an item box. Gets you more if you're behind. Fake item box is sort of the reverse of this. Fake item box is an item that you can drop, and your enemy's carts can hit it and they spin out. But it's kind of the mirror of item box. So target player reveals 3 cards from their hand, and you choose a non-land card from among them. That player discards that card. And then Pursuit, if an opponent controls more creatures than you, that player reveals 6 cards instead of 3. So if you don't have Pursuit, there's some risk to playing this card. If you play it early and your opponent has 3 land cards in their hand, they can just reveal 3 land cards, and you don't actually get to choose anything, and they won't have to discard a card. But if, say, your opponent spawns on turn 1 and creates a 1/1, then Pursuit will be turned on, and now you're going to get to look at their entire hand and pick their best card to get rid of. So, but also, even if you don't have Pursuit, even if you're getting ahead on creatures early in the game, or your opponent's just not playing any creatures, there's still the possibility that turn 4 or 5 of the game, your opponent only has 3 cards in their hand, and you still get to get their best card. So there's some different ways to play this, and I think there's a lot of strategy about when you play this. There's definitely the potential to get blown out by playing it at a bad time when your opponent happens to have 3 lands in their hand. Softlock. I think I'll probably want to change this card around a bit, but it serves some really useful utility in this set right now. So Softlock is a Mario Maker card. It's the idea that a maker can get you trapped in in a little box, and you just have to restart the level. So your creature gets trapped. So and it can happen all of a sudden. So anyway, it's got Flash. It's an enchanted creature. Enchanted creature can attack or block. This is called a pacifism effect. He's just trapped there. This has some interesting utility though, with the things that are going on in the set. So with Creature with Super, if your creature gets into combat and it's going to die, or maybe your opponent is pointing a kill spell at your creature, you can flash in Softlock on your creature, and it will actually protect your Creature with Super. Your creatures can get exiled and get returned to the battlefield. Also, it's got some nice synergy with Architect, where you can turn on Architect at instant speed and surprise your opponent with some other ability that has Architect that'll get turned on all of a sudden. So yeah, it's got some interesting utility. The flavor is sort of whatever, but I think the card is useful in the set, and the set needs some removal, so I think that's a good aspect of it too. Fling. This is a card that came together really nicely. So Fling is actually a reprint. This card has been printed several times throughout Magic history, and I'm reprinting it again in my set. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature. Fling deals damage equal to the sacrifice creature's power to any target. So a really nice use of this card is to steal your opponent's creature and then sacrifice it and deal damage to another of their creatures or to their face or something. I actually decided that I wanted this card to be a functional reprint of Fling, and I had this art ready to go because, you know, you're throwing your opponent's creature at the boss. I was originally going to call it something else. I was looking for a name for it, and then somebody pointed out that it literally depicts Mario flinging a bomb boo at Boulder Geist. So anyway, reprinting it as named Fling made just a ton of sense, and I love this card as a result. Next up, we have another reprint. Again, this is sort of like I want to have a bunch of kind of generic spells, things like removal that are, you know, things that have been done throughout Magic history, and I don't necessarily want to reinvent the wheel all the time. So I saw this as a really nice flavor match. So Ulcerate is a reprint from M15. Target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn. You lose 3 life. So this is supposed to represent a poison mushroom. When you ingest a poison mushroom, it hurts you. Ulcers are things you get in your stomach when you eat something bad. So the name makes a lot of sense. It's like dangerous to handle poison mushrooms. Even just touching them, you know, hurts you in a lot of games. So anyway, it's very flavorful, matches the poison mushroom flavor really well, and it's a reprint. And the nice thing about having reprints is, like, people will recognize the cards. They remember what they do. They remember how powerful they are, and it makes it a lot easier when you're encountering a bunch of new cards to internalize quickly what's going on and how powerful the card is and what sorts of decks it fits into. And then that's it, actually. That's the last card I have to show you for this video. So that is 180 cards. I have 185 cards in the set, but that includes basic lands. So I'm now halfway through designing cards for the set. Obviously, I'm going to be like removing cards and changing up what cards do and that sort of stuff. So I wouldn't say I'm halfway done with the project. There's also a lot of playtesting that needs to happen once I do have more cards. I've already started doing some playtesting, but I'm really happy to... I mean, at least I've designed 180 cards. I know I can do that again, so I should be able to finish this set. Even if it's, you know, after playtesting, it's maybe horrible. I think it'll be okay. And I think I can modify the cards to make it a good experience. So, but it's just a nice feeling to be halfway done. If you are more interested in seeing more about this, there's, you know, I've done a video series for every card that I've designed and redesigned. And, but yeah, check out my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/SethBling. I'm live streaming a lot of the design process. You can also follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/SethBling to see when I'm going live. And check out reddit.com/r/Mario the Gathering. There's links to all these in the video description, but people are submitting card ideas, and I'm definitely getting a lot of ideas from that too. And that's been pretty great. That's about it. Thanks for watching.